Welcome to lesson 1.4, where we're going to learn about how businessmen or business people set a price for. So in our example here, Joe owns an electronics store and sells TVs in Alberta. Now, if you may remember, in Alberta, there's no provincial sales tax. There's only 5% GST. So let's take a look on the right-hand side here. We're at the store. Here's the TV sitting on the shelf. It's got a tag of $200, and I was wondering if I was going to buy that. I would say it's going to cost the original $200 plus some amount of money, and then that's going to be equal to my final price. Well, my sales tax rate is 5%, but the amount of sales tax, so I'll say sales tax amount. We've done this kind of problem many times. It would be, I guess, 5% of 200. So that would be 0.05 times 200. And if I work that out, I think that ends up being $10. So I could go up over here and say, okay, well, $10 sales tax. So my final price is going to be $210. Okay, so let's go back and think about this question over here. How does Joe make any money? That $10 does not go to him, that goes to the government, the federal government, because it's GST. What about, where does the TV come from? Well, it comes from, here's my, I don't know, you may laugh at my terrible drawing, comes from the TV factory. So here's a couple TVs loaded up on this truck, and they're on the way to Joe's store. Let's say that Joe buys them from the factory for $160 each. So the amount that he increases that price by, that's what we call markup. And then how much does he sell them for? For $200. So to answer our question, how does Joe make money? We call that markup. Or in other words, he's going to buy for less, sell for more. And the difference between the two will be his income. So there's two ways to look up markup. You can say, in this case, there was a markup amount. Amount of markup, how much would that be? 160 plus, I guess it would be $40. We could also look at the rate. We could also say percent rate of markup. From our information below, it says he uses a markup rate of 25%. I just want to point out how similar these two ideas are. In both cases, we're taking a price and we're increasing it to get to a final price. You can look at that increase in terms of a percent, which in this case the sales tax, the rate was 5%, or an amount, which was $10. Here, before we get to that $200, we could say, well, Joe bought the TV for $160 at the factory, and there was an increase. In this case, we don't call it sales tax, we call it markup. And we can think of the amount of the markup or the percent rate of the markup. Very similar to sales tax. Another way of talking about that $160, the price that Joe buys from the factory, we can also call that the wholesale price. And I think we mentioned this already. Note, just like sales tax, markup can be expressed as a dollar amount or as a percentage. So let's do an example. In the first example, it says that Sandy purchases nails for her hardware store at 5 cents per nail, and she sells them for 7 cents per nail. What is her markup as a dollar amount? Well, it's the difference between how much she buys and sells. So, one way that we were writing this, we could say 0.05 plus the markup equals 0.07. It might be so obvious that it's 2 cents, but how would you get that? You would say the markup is equal to the final price minus the original price. So that's the pattern that we would use every time. And so in this particular case, it's going to be 7 cents minus 5 cents, which would be equal to 2 cents. That's not a lot of money for each nail, so she better sell a lot of nails. Second example, Arlene purchases fabric at a wholesale price for her custom sewing business in Dawson City, Yukon Territory. She pays $46 per meter. She charges a markup of 20% on the fabric. So in this case, you're going to start with $46 plus some amount of markup, and it's going to give you our final price here, right? So how much is the markup? Well, the markup is going to be equal to 20% of $46, just like we did for the sales tax. Now we need to change that percentage to a decimal, so we move it over 2 or divide by 100, so we get 0.2 times 46, and I believe that is $9.20. So what will our final price be? It'll be 46 plus 9.20. So that would be $55.20. All right. Moving on to the next page. What if we were supposed to find the percent rate of markup? Okay, so generally the percent rate of markup is going to be equal to the amount of markup divided by the original price. Now the one thing is that this is going to be a decimal, and so we will want to convert it to a percentage by multiplying by 100%. So I'm just going to say this is the part here that convert from a decimal to a percentage by multiplying by 100. I'm going to put my 100 over here, by 100. There we go. Okay, so here's an example. The original price was $200 and the markup is $10. So the final price would be $210. But we're not asking what's the final price. We're asking what was the percent rate of markup. Okay, so the amount of change, the amount of markup was $10. The original price was $200. Okay, so that the percent rate of markup, I just wrote the percent symbol rather than writing it all out, is going to be equal to the amount. Actually, you know what? Instead of writing out all these words again, here it says up here, the amount of markup divided by the original price. So the amount of markup is how much we increased it by. It's $10. Divided by the original amount is 200. So if you type 10 divided by 200 on your calculator, we're going to get 0.05. Now we're almost done, but now we got to do that multiply by 100 business. So if the decimal is 0.05, then the percent version of that is after we multiply by 100. In other words, we move the decimal over 2 places, 5%. Okay, same amount that GST would be. I think we have one last example. Let's say that I buy some chips from Costco for 50 cents a bag and then sell them for 75 cents per bag. What is the percent rate of markup? Well, okay, so the percent rate is going to be equal to the amount of markup divided by the original price. So in this case, what was the amount of markup? Or another way of writing it, what was the amount of change? Well, if it went from 50 cents to 75 cents, I have to subtract the two, and so the answer would be 0.25 or 25 cents. What was the original amount? 0.50. So when I calculate this, I'm going to put in 0.25 in the numerator and 0.5 in the denominator. When I do that on my calculator, I get 0.5. Now, we want to write this as a percentage. So remember what our last step is we want to multiply that by 100 to convert that into a percentage. So I'm going to say or 50%. Because when I move it over two places, 1, 2, I have to add that 0 in there. So I'm going to get 50%, and that is my final answer. Excellent. Well, I hope that made sense to you, and as always, I will see you in class.